Ladies and gentlemen, listen carefully. If there's one message I want to drill into your mind today, it's this: live for yourself, not for others. Because the moment you start building your identity on someone else's expectations, you sign away the rights to your own life. And nothing is more expensive than living a life that doesn't belong to you. Let me ask you something. Whose approval are you chasing? Your parents, your friends, strangers on social media who don't even know you? You think you're living, but you're actually performing. You're acting in a movie where the director isn't even in the room. You've handed over your script to society and said, "Tell me who to be." And the crazy part? You expect to be fulfilled. Most people wake up every morning and immediately ask themselves a silent, destructive question: what will people think? And that question has killed more dreams than fear ever could. You're so busy avoiding judgment that you're ignoring your destiny. Listen, you cannot build a legendary life while begging for applause from an audience that doesn't matter. Let me tell you something uncomfortable. People will judge you whether you succeed or fail. They judged you when you did nothing. They'll judge you when you do something. So if judgment is guaranteed, at least get judged for living a life that's yours. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. The minute you stop living for others, people will label you selfish. You know why? Because your compliance benefited them. Your obedience made their life easier. The moment you choose your path, they lose their control, and control disguised as care is one of the most dangerous prisons you can ever enter. You were not born to be a copy. You were born to be original. There's no statue in the world built for the person who blended in. The bold get remembered. The obedient get forgotten. If you want to make impact, if you want to sleep at night with peace, if you want to look in the mirror without regret, live a life that you design, some of you are waiting for permission. You're waiting for someone to clap for you, validate you, endorse your dream. Let me break it to you, nobody is coming. Nobody is obligated to understand your vision. It's not theirs, it's yours. The day you understand this, the world opens up. The weight on your shoulders disappears. Your decisions become sharper. Your energy becomes unstoppable. You know what's more tragic than death: dying with potential never used. Imagine being 80 years old and realizing you lived 80 years for people who aren't even alive to remember your name. That's not a life. That's a prison sentence. So, here's your assignment. Stop explaining your choices to people who don't pay your bills. Stop sacrificing your future to protect someone else's comfort. Stop shrinking so others don't feel insecure in your presence. Your dream was given to you, not to them. The world doesn't need another imitation. It needs your voice, your mind, your path, your fire. Live boldly, live intentionally, live unapologetically, but above everything else, stop seeking validation from people who don't shape your future. This single idea sounds simple, yet it quietly controls the majority of people on this planet. Think about how many decisions you've made not because they aligned with your goals, your beliefs, or your identity, but because you wanted someone to clap for you, approve of you, or think highly of you. We're trained from childhood to value the opinions of others. We learn to chase gold stars in school, applause on stage, likes online, and approval from family members who believe they know exactly how our life should unfold. Over time, this conditioning becomes so ingrained that we forget how to think for ourselves. We start living life in reaction mode, constantly adjusting our direction based on what others might say. And while we may convince ourselves that we're being strategic or respectful, the truth is more painful. We're afraid of disappointing people who have absolutely no part in shaping the outcomes of our destiny. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid acknowledging. Validation feels good, but it doesn't build anything. Approval doesn't produce results. Applause doesn't solve problems, and praise doesn't create progress. Yet, people are willing to trade their dreams for it. They abandon what they want because someone else raises an eyebrow. They settle for careers they hate because it keeps the peace. They lower their ambition because someone said, "Don't aim too high." They silence their voice because someone might disagree. All this sacrifice not for their future, but to avoid temporary discomfort. They forget that nobody pays their bills, nobody fights their battles, nobody lives with the consequences of their decisions. Those who criticize won't be there when you fail, and those who discourage won't show up when you succeed. They're spectators, not participants, and spectators don't get to dictate the game. The problem with external validation is that it turns you into a puppet. Your strings get pulled by reactions, comments, assumptions, and perceptions. Instead of acting based on purpose, you react based on opinions. Your identity becomes a reflection of noise rather than clarity. It's impossible to build a powerful life when your confidence is outsourced. You were not designed to be a thermometer that reflects the temperature of public opinion. You are supposed to be a thermostat that sets it. But as long as you seek validation from others, your value is determined by their mood, their insecurities, their limitations, and their fears. And what could be more tragic than allowing someone else's weakness to define your potential? Consider this. Every iconic person you know stopped asking for permission long before anyone believed in them. Visionaries aren't validated at the beginning. They're criticized, mocked, doubted, misunderstood. People laughed at inventors, they dismissed entrepreneurs, they judged artists, they ridiculed pioneers. If these individuals had depended on validation, the world would have never evolved. Imagine if the greatest thinkers had listened to the opinions of average minds. Imagine if innovators had waited for approval. Imagine if leaders had said, "Let me do the safe thing because others don't get it." Progress requires rebellion against the expectations of the masses. Growth demands disobedience to the ordinary. Your future isn't shaped by the beliefs of others. It's shaped by your decisions, your discipline, your standards. What's even more ironic is that the people whose opinions you fear are often not living lives you admire. They're not bold. They're not driven. They're not purposeful, yet you give their words power. You let their doubt become your ceiling. The moment you recognize this foolish exchange, everything shifts. You begin to see how much time you've wasted worrying about people who aren't even thinking about you. The truth is, most people are too busy dealing with their own insecurities to care about your choices. And those who criticize loudly usually do so because your courage threatens their comfort. Your ambition reminds them of their stagnation. Your growth exposes their excuses, so they want you to shrink, not because you're wrong, but because your rise makes them uncomfortable. It's important to understand that validation is addictive. The more you receive it, the more you crave it. You start tailoring your life to maintain approval. You measure yourself by external reactions instead of internal standards. This is dangerous because confidence built on validation is fragile. The moment applause stops, your identity collapses. True confidence isn't loud. It doesn't need assurance. It comes from knowing who you are, what you want, and what you're willing to endure to get it. You lose your power when your decisions depend on someone else's acceptance. The moment you detach from that need, you become unstoppable. You no longer fear rejection because rejection has no authority over you. You no longer worry about being misunderstood because clarity exists within you, not outside. You think of your life as a vehicle. You're in the driver's seat. Others can be passengers, but they cannot steer. Yet many people hand over the wheel to anyone who has an opinion. They let family navigate, friends dictate the route, society choose the destination, and fear control the speed. Then they wonder why they feel lost. They're driving a car they don't own, heading toward a destination they didn't choose, running out of fuel because the journey drains them instead of energizing them. The moment you reclaim the wheel, everything changes. Your decisions become intentional. Your direction becomes clear. Your energy returns. You unlock your potential because you're finally moving toward a future that belongs to you. The most powerful moments in life are often the ones when you stop caring about what others think. Not because you become arrogant, but because you finally understand something profound. Opinions don't build empires. Opinions don't create legacies. Opinions don't produce greatness. Only actions, discipline, and conviction do that. Look at any person who has ever achieved something meaningful. They reached a point where they said, "I don't care who approves, I care who I become." That mindset is the beginning of transformation. The day you stop seeking validation is the day you start making decisions rooted in purpose instead of fear. It's the day your life finally belongs to you, not to the expectations of others. Your life's direction must align with your personal vision, not others' expectations. This is one of the most misunderstood principles of success, yet it's the foundation of every meaningful achievement. Most people don't realize how much of their life is influenced, controlled, or dictated by external forces: family, culture, peers, trends, social media, and even silent societal pressures. They wake up each morning and follow a routine they didn't design, pursue goals they didn't choose, and adopt beliefs they never questioned. They become actors in a play they didn't audition for, living out scripts written by people who have no stake in the consequences of their decision. The tragedy is not that people fail. The tragedy is that people succeed at things they never wanted in the first place. They climb ladders only to discover the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. Your vision is sacred. It's personal, unique, and often misunderstood. It's not supposed to make sense to everyone. It's not supposed to be accepted by the crowd. Your vision comes from your internal compass, your values, your experiences, your identity, your imagination. When you suppress that vision to satisfy the expectations of others, you create an internal conflict that shows up as anxiety, regret, frustration, and resentment. You can lie to the world about who you are, but you cannot lie to yourself. Deep down, you always know when you're off track. You feel it when you're forcing yourself into someone else's blueprint. You feel it when you're living someone else's definition of success. You feel it when you make decisions that please others but betray your soul. Expectations are powerful. They can be invisible chains disguised as love, concern, tradition, or responsibility. Parents expect you to pursue a certain career path. Friends expect you to act a certain way. Society expects you to follow a timeline, graduate at a certain age, get married at a certain age, achieve milestones in the right order. But who created these rules? Who decided what success looks like for you? Why should a world that doesn't understand your potential get to dictate your pace, your passion, or your purpose? When you align your life with expectations instead of vision, you become a prisoner of approval. You move through life checking boxes instead of chasing meaning. You start living for acceptance instead of alignment, and acceptance is a destination that never arrives. Here's the brutal truth. People who pressure you to fit into their expectations rarely face the consequences of your choices. They won't feel the emptiness of a career you hate. They won't endure the frustration of a life you didn't want. They won't suffer from the dreams you abandon. They get to walk away with their opinions while you live with the results. The more you tune into others' expectations, the more disconnected you become from your own voice. And when your voice disappears, so does your identity. You no longer decide who you are. You inherit definitions from others. You accept labels, roles, and limitations that were never meant for you. The longer you operate like this, the harder it becomes to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Your personal vision doesn't need permission. It needs commitment, it needs clarity, it needs courage. Visions are often born in moments of silence, discomfort, or curiosity, not in the noise of opinions. That's why most people never find theirs. They're too busy seeking validation, being entertained, or comparing their journey to others. They want approval before they act, certainty before they try, applause before they fail. Vision doesn't operate that way. Vision demands trust. It asks you to move even when you can't see the whole picture. It asks you to sacrifice comfort for conviction. It asks for decisions that others won't understand because they weren't meant to understand. It's your path, not theirs. When your life aligns with your vision, everything changes. Decisions become easier because you have a filter. Does this bring me closer to my purpose or pull me away? Distractions lose power because you prioritize differently. You stop chasing trends because you're building something timeless. You stop comparing yourself because your blueprint is unlike anyone else's. You stop fearing judgment because judgment has no authority over someone who knows where they're going. Alignment doesn't eliminate challenges, but it gives you strength to overcome them. When you're fueled by purpose, setbacks become lessons, not reasons to quit. Obstacles become indicators that you're on a path worth fighting, for there will always be people who doubt you, misunderstand you, criticize you, or try to redirect you, not because they're evil, but because your vision disrupts their comfort. People are more comfortable with predictable versions of you. The moment you evolve, you force them to confront their own stagnation. Some people want you to remain who you were so they don't have to deal with who they are. That's why approval is temporary, but alignment is eternal. Approval is borrowed, alignment is owned. Approval fades the moment you stop pleasing others. Alignment stays with you because it's rooted in who you are, not what others want from you. One of the greatest personal liberations you will ever experience is the moment you stop caring if others understand your path. Understanding is not required for respect, nor is agreement required for direction. You are not obligated to shrink your dreams to fit someone else's perspective. If your dream fits inside someone else's comfort zone, it's not big enough. You weren't designed to blend in. You weren't created to walk a path already walked 1,000 times. Your vision is evidence that something the world needs is locked inside you. If you don't pursue it, the world loses something irreplaceable. Your future will be determined by one question. Do you have the courage to live the life you see, or will you settle for the life others expect? Every day, people without vision try to influence those who have one. They'll tell you what's realistic without knowing what's possible. They'll tell you what you should do without understanding what you're capable of. They speak from fear, not from foresight. If you listen to them long enough, their doubts become your beliefs. Their limitations become your boundaries, and their expectations become your prison walls. But the moment you align with your own vision, the world can no longer confine you. You realize that your life is your responsibility, your canvas, your story, and no one else gets to hold the pen. Judgment is inevitable, so get judged for being authentic. This statement is not just a motivational line, it's a law of human existence. No matter who you are, no matter what you do, no matter how pure your intentions, someone somewhere will have something to say about it. People judge whether you stay silent or speak boldly. They judge whether you play small or grow big. They judge whether you follow the norm or challenge it. You cannot escape judgment, but you can choose what you get judged for. You can either be judged for trying to fit into a role that wasn't meant for you, or you can be judged for living a life that is unapologetically yours from childhood. We are conditioned to avoid judgment. We're told not to upset people, not to stand out, not to provoke opinions. We live in societies where acceptance is treated like currency and conformity is rewarded. So what happens? People become experts at dimming their own light to avoid attention. They hold their tongue when they want to speak truth. They hide their talents because they fear jealousy. They ignore their dreams because others will question them. They build their life to be judged as safe, not significant. But here's the problem. Hiding does not protect you from judgment. It only guarantees you'll be judged for playing a role you hate. Take a moment and think about the people who changed history. They were judged harshly. Innovators were considered insane. Leaders were called reckless. Pioneers were labeled arrogant. Artists were mocked before their work became masterpieces. Every person who ever pursued something extraordinary triggered criticism from ordinary minds. It wasn't because they were wrong, it was because they were different. Difference disrupts comfort. It reminds people of what they are not doing, of dreams they left behind, of potential they never activated. When you live authentically, your presence forces others to confront their excuses. And instead of addressing their insecurities, the average person would rather attack your courage. Judgment reveals more about the person giving it than the person receiving it. When people judge your ambition, it's a reflection of their limits. When they judge your confidence, it's a reflection of their insecurity. When they judge your dreams, it's a reflection of their fear. Yet so many people internalize judgment as truth. They allow critics to become architects of their reality. They waste energy defending themselves to people who have never built anything. They shrink their identity to appease crowds who don't even know who they want to be. And then they wonder why life feels suffocating, why joy disappears, why passion fades. It's because authenticity cannot survive in an environment where external judgment dictates internal direction. Authenticity is not rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It is alignment with who you really are. It's choosing your values over approval. It's prioritizing clarity over popularity. It's doing what makes sense to your soul even when it doesn't make sense to society. But authenticity has a cost. You will offend people who expect you to live according to their script. You will lose people who only supported the version of you that served their interests. You will make others uncomfortable simply by existing as your true self. But what's the alternative? Live a life that is socially acceptable but personally unbearable. Pretend to be someone you're not, just to avoid criticism from people who don't even matter. You cannot avoid being judged, but you can choose to be judged for standing rather than kneeling, for speaking truth rather than staying silent, for pursuing greatness rather than settling for mediocrity. People will judge you for taking risks. They will also judge you for staying stagnant. They will judge you for being too loud. They will also judge you for not speaking up. They will judge you for dreaming big. They will also judge you for thinking small. No matter what you do, someone has an opinion. So why not give them something worth talking about? Why not let your actions reflect your convictions instead of your fears? One of the most liberating realizations in life is understanding that judgment loses power when authenticity becomes your priority. When you know who you are, external noise becomes just that, noise. You stop personalizing opinions that were never based on understanding. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't qualified to advise you. You stop watering down your potential to make others comfortable. The moment you embrace authenticity, judgment transforms from a threat into background sound. You no longer see critics as obstacles, but as evidence that you're living boldly. People don't judge you because they know your journey. They judge you because your journey challenges their worldview. And nothing threatens a stagnant soul more than a moving one. You become a mirror they didn't ask to look into. Your growth highlights their excuses. Your success exposes their laziness. Your courage reveals their fear. So of course they judge. It's easier to attack you than to evolve themselves. Understanding this frees you from emotional captivity. It reminds you that judgment is not a verdict. It's commentary from the sidelines. And spectators never determine the outcome of the game. If you hide your gifts, the world loses something valuable. If you silence your voice, someone who needed it will never hear it. If you abandon your path to avoid judgment, you betray the purpose that was uniquely assigned to you. Greatness does not come from blending in. Legacy is not born from imitation. Impact is not created by compliance. The people who leave a mark are the ones who refuse to let judgment dictate their destiny. They choose authenticity even when it's misunderstood. They choose truth even when it's unpopular. They choose purpose even when it's lonely. When you finally understand that judgment is inevitable, something shifts inside you. You stop negotiating your identity. You stop apologizing for your ambition. You stop delaying your dreams until others approve. You become comfortable being disliked by the wrong people because you realize it's the price of being loved by the right ones. Your loyalty transfers from others' expectations to your own evolution. Your focus shifts from protecting your reputation to fulfilling your potential. And once that shift happens, there is no turning back.